Good morning. Welcome to Northwest Unitarian Universalist Church on this chilly fall morning. I'm Diana Kohler. My pronouns are she, her, and I will be participating in this morning's service along with Kathy Henry and Alex Myers. And Kathy and Alex are doing our tech support, and Alex is playing the piano for us. Ken Hermanot, our music director, helped us prepare for the service today and is here assisting with the tech. Zena Stewart and Linda Gobeski will be participating this morning. And Eva Leventer and some RE families have produced a video with Ken's help for you. Our topic this morning is about our principles and how we as a congregation can live more deeply into them. If you are a visitor here this morning and would like to stay in touch with us, please fill out the visitor form that you will see in the chat box. The chat feature has been disabled except for chatting directly with the tech host if you're having problems. If you are having problems with Zoom, you can either use that chat function or use the raise hand function. You are encouraged to change your pronouns on Zoom. To change your name, click on the Participants button. Next, hover your mouse over your name in the participants list on the right side of the Zoom window, and then click on Rename and make the changes. Kathy Henry is going to read our announcements this morning.
Our Northwest UU gathering guidelines allow for indoor gatherings up to the capacity limits set. Only small indoor gatherings, 10 people or less, may be held at very high risk level, which is where we are at the moment. All indoor gatherings are suspended at severe risk. Any change in the size of gatherings will be made by noon on the Wednesday before the Sunday morning worship service. This will be communicated to the congregation as quickly as possible. And then when moving from severe to very high or very high to high risk, we need a 2-week downward trend in new cases before allowing larger gatherings again. So our monthly theme for October is cultivating relationship. On today, we have our worship service at 10:30, the family service, and then at noon, there's a community nature hike in Southfield at Carpenter Lake Nature Preserves. Upcoming Sundays: on Sunday, October 31st, Waiting for the Great Pumpkin with the Reverend Kevin DeBeck, our interim minister. And then there will be a trunk or treat on Sunday, October 31st at noon after the service. And that will be, I'm assuming, in the parking lot at Northwest. Fall Retreat for Women 2021, Friday through Sunday, November 5th through the 7th at Riverhawk Lodge in Proud Lake State Recreation Area. So you can contact Amanda Sporell for more information about that. The service auction will be virtual this year and will take place Saturday, November 13th. And you can contact Sherry Smith for more information. And the online donations, the link is there, but you should have received it in email as well. October plate collections. So we have just a second because I need to put this link into the chat for you. Our 100% plate collection, we're having basically a special extra plate collection for South Oakland Shelter, which we do every year. And then there's also a shared plate that you can give. And then there's Oakland Forward is our 50% plate collection. So we share 50% of our plate every month with a local organization, and Oakland Forward is the organization that we will be donating the 50% plate to in October.
We have a brief video with the executive director of Oakland Forward, whose name is Kermit Williams.
Thank you, Northwestern, for having Oakland Forward today. I think this is the first church to donate to our cause and mission. So you guys are the inaugural church. So I'm very excited about that. I'm going to talk to my pastor about doing something similar with some nonprofits. The mission of Oakland Forward is to build power by removing economic, racial, and social barriers to provide opportunities that include individuals of people of color in Oakland County. So the four major elements that we focus on all the time is voter education, also voter registration that we do all the time. Some of the national projects we're working on is paid leave for all. I think one of your members, Randy, works on that with us. And so he's doing a phenomenal job. Also, one of the things that we do all the time is civic engagement. So we have a class of about 25, mostly young people between 18 and 35 right now, that we are training how to be civically engaged. So they've attended city council meetings, school board meetings. We just had them at the county last week, and some others learning the ropes on how to get involved and get engaged. And so I'm one of the co-founders of what was called the Pontiac Policy Council. And we started doing work in Pontiac, which is the poorest city in Oakland County, which is one of the richest counties in the United States. And what we learned from that work was when we started doing work in Royal Oak Township and Southfield and some other places, that we had pockets of people that needed that same help and needed that same removal of barriers. And so we founded Oakland Forward about 2 years ago, and I'm the executive director. And so we have did some work with COVID. We've given out over 100,000 masks so far since the pandemic started. One of the things I'm most proud of is we fed 2,000 seniors at the beginning of the pandemic, because we realized part of the pandemic problem was the isolation. So people were bringing them Meals on Wheels and other stuff, but we actually had one of our local restaurants cook them a good, what would be a Thanksgiving dinner, and brought it to them. And so we were very happy about that. But we believe in every election, every time, and getting people not only engaged in their local community, but trying to give them a tool in order to do it. And so when we work in other cities, not just Pontiac, we do a year-round community survey. And so our goal is to find out what that particular community needs, because it's not a cookie cutter solution to what we're doing, but find out what they need and then equip them with the tools and empower them to be able to change their own community. And so we sit on the Michigan Economic Justice Coalition with Trina, who's another member of your congregation. And so we are very excited that Oakland Forward was chosen. I think they gave me like 2 minutes as an elevator speech, but I could talk about this for 2 hours. So
The word courage comes from the Latin cor, which means heart. According to poet Mark Nepo, the original use of the word courage meant to stand by one's core, a quote, striking concept that reinforces the belief found in almost all traditions that living from the center is what enables us to face whatever life has to offer.
To encourage means to hearten, to impart strength and confidence. This is our work as a religious community, to encourage one another, to be bold in engaging the world around us, as well as what scares us internally, to give one another the confidence and heart to live as fully as possible. Now, please join us in reading aloud the words on the screen.
With full hearts, we affirm our relationships with one another. We recognize our agency and our connective power, and we accept our responsibility to be bold and courageous. We light this chalice, symbol of all that we are, all that we have done together, and all that we will be, as our shared ministry encourages those within and beyond our walls.
Our first reflection this morning is one that was created by Eva Leventer, our RE director, several UU families, with the help of Ken Hermanot. And I'm very excited to see their video about a covenant quilt.
Hello everyone. This is Yona and I'm Eva. And we're here to talk a little bit about a quilt covenant. So in Soul Matters, we're learning about quilt covenants, and a couple of children gathered the other week and we made this quilt that you see, a paper quilt, and talked about covenant and how making a quilt is kind of like making a covenant. And the ways that we thought were kind of similar is making a quilt is a group of people stitching pieces together and making their words make sense together. And we thought that this is perfect for cultivating relationship because you're working as a group. And so I asked the children if they could make a patch of the quilt about something that they wanted to protect. So each of the children and the adults too made a patch, and we put it together and we made a paper quilt. So this is our project, and I hope you enjoy the other videos too. And this is Yona here. Do you want to show my face? Smile? Okay, thank you.
So I drew a meadow because they're one of my favorite types of places on this earth, and I would like to protect meadows.
I drew a tree, a bear, and a cave because I want to protect the animals and plants that live on this earth.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm Jake.
And I'm Amanda. And last week we drew pictures of things that we wanted to protect. And so Hannah, what did you draw?
A doggy.
A doggy. Where's the dog?
In somebody's backyard.
Yeah. And what do you love about dogs?
Because they're fluffy and cute.
Oh, yeah. And do you love all animals?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the dog might represent all animals that need to be protected?
Yeah.
Yeah, not just dogs, but all animals. And Jake, did you draw a picture?
Nah.
Nah. And I drew a picture of Lake Huron. It's where we go camping every year. There's a state park right on Lake Huron. You can camp with your own little private beach. It's super sandy and the water's super clean. And we just love it because we can walk out in the water for a really long time and be so far away from shore. But the kids are like only up to their armpits in the water. It's really wonderful. And yeah, so that's what we drew. An animal and some water. All right. Thanks for listening. Hope to see you soon.
Bye.
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 Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, 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 gathered here in the mystery of the hour.
Our 8 principles, I'm going to read them for us this morning. So let me begin. The members of Northwest Unitarian Universalist Church covenant to affirm and promote 1. The inherent worth and dignity of every person. 2. Justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. 3. acceptance of one another, and encouragement of spiritual growth in our congregations. 4, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. 5, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and society at large. 6, a goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. 7, respect for the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part. And 8, journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. Thank you. Our next hymn is To Mercy, Pity, Peace, and Love.
Mercy, pity, peace, and love, all bring in their distress, and to those virtues of delight return their thankfulness, return their thankfulness. For mercy has a human heart, and pity our human face, and love the human form divine, and peace the human dress, and peace the human dress. Then every one of every clime that prays in deep distress, praise to the human form divine, love, mercy, pity, peace, love, mercy, pity, peace.
You just heard Linda reading our 8th principles, and I would like to start this part of the service with your reflection. Why do our principles matter? I'd like you to do an experiment with me. If you were here in person, you'd all have Post-it notes and be jotting your answers down and posting them on the walls of the sanctuary, but you're there. So, because you're at a distance, Kathy has enabled the chat function, and when you've formulated your answer, please condense it and write it in the chat. Kathy is going to read some of the representative answers out loud, and you can scan the chat yourself. And while you're writing, Alex is going to play a little bit of music for us. Thank you, Alex. Kathy, do you have some responses to read for us?
I do. So, let's see. So, Ariana wrote, when a religion doesn't have a creed, it's nice to have something, a list of principles we are not forced to believe, but choose to try to uphold. It gives me something to tell non-UUs what our religion stands for. We stand on the side of love. Jim and Kaya said, keeping our principles in mind helps us to be our best selves in all of our actions. Ron, Barry, and Kathy Scherf, they provide guidance on checking our journey through life. Tandy Jurgensen said they help to form a community of people with similar values. And Stephanie Patil said, our principles express how we intentionally want to live our lives in this community called world. And Tom Ott, they focus our attention on the most important goals for ourselves and of others in our congregation to attain the best society.
Thank you all who participated. Now I'd like everybody to stop for a moment and just think about this. You don't have to write it. How do we hold ourselves accountable for living up to our principles as individuals and as a congregation? And if we don't have a method of accountability, what are we doing here? Why do we call ourselves members of a religion? As Unitarian Universalists, we don't have a common creed, but the preamble of our principle states that we are members of a religion with a covenant. I know that word makes some of us squirm, but let's look at what that means in UU terms. To quote from Unlocking the Power of Covenant, a report from the UUA Commission on Appraisal, a covenant is a mutual sacred promise between groups or individuals to stay in relationship, to care about each other, and to work together in good faith. In the Unitarian Universalist tradition, we seek to raise the we above the I, the community above the individuals. Setting aside the negative associations we may have had with covenant in other settings, I wonder if raising the we above the I is a big part of our resistance to the idea of a covenant. It's hard to put the we first when each of us knows what I want and need from all of you. And our principles do set up an inherent tension between the individual and the greater good. Individualism is certainly part of our denominational DNA, but it needs to be balanced. Psychiatrist M. Scott Peck explains, the problem, indeed the total failure of the ethic of rugged individualism, is that it incorporates only one half of our humanity. It recognizes that we are called to individuation, power, and wholeness. But it denies the other part of the human story, that we can never fully get there, and that we are, of necessity, in our uniqueness, weak and imperfect creatures who need each other. He goes on to say that rugged individualism also relentlessly isolates us from each other and makes genuine community impossible. A covenant will support our almost always imperfect efforts to balance the I and the we. If we cannot or will not enter into covenant with each other, we ought to just remove the chalice and call ourselves the Northwest Sunday Discussion Club, because we are not fully a Unitarian Universalist congregation without a covenant. Our covenant will be one that we as a congregation will create. Its format, content, and language will be our own. Will there be compromises? Are there ever not compromises with a group? Well, can our mission statement fill that role? No, sorry. Our mission statement references our aspirations for what we want to do, while a covenant is about who and how we want to be as a community. Well, how would we use a covenant? At its most basic level, a covenant offers accountability, a way to measure whether we are in right relationship with each other and whether we are exceeded in being how and what we want to be in our congregation and in the world. Using it as an element in worship services will pull us into community by reminding us of our aspirations. I remember our founding minister, Frank Gentile, saying the root word for religion is religare, which means to gather together again. And that's what using our covenant in our services will do for us. Our covenant will help us make sound decisions in times of conflict and transition, and will educate newcomers about what we aspire to be at Northwest. If I haven't convinced you yet that we really need a congregational covenant, let me add a very practical reason. When we are searching for a settled minister in a year and a half, there will probably be about 44 other churches also in search for a settled minister. And the bad news about that is the pool of ministers seeking churches may be fewer than the number of openings. Increasingly, ministers are not interested in serving churches without covenants, as our interim search committee discovered. When I asked Reverend Kevin why that was, he said that churches without covenants tend to not have good processes for handling conflict, and the lack of a congregational covenant would serve as a red flag to ministers. A covenant is going to make us more competitive in what will be an already competitive search process. It could even make a critical difference in our ability to actually call a settled minister. So being in covenant will make a big difference in Northwest's future. But even more importantly, creating a covenant will deepen our understanding of who we are and what we want our congregation to be. We will need to listen deeply to each other, speak thoughtfully, and probably have patience at what is likely to be a messy process of arriving at a covenant. Even when we've created the covenant, our work won't be done. We can't just slap it up on our website and hang a framed copy in our building and say, they are done. We must incorporate it into our congregational life and change it when it's appropriate. Covenanting with each other will certainly demand an amount of change in our congregation, and it's almost always easier to resist change than we embrace it, particularly when we don't know what those changes are going to be. But this is certain: creating our covenant at Northwest will be the most direct path to becoming beloved community and living more deeply into our principles. And now we have our final hymn.
Break not the circle of enabling love, where people grow forgiven and forgiving. Break not the circle, make it wider still, till it includes, embraces
In 1637, the white settlers in what was to become the town of Dedham, Massachusetts, wanted to start a church. What they longed for was sincere religious association based in love and founded in freedom.
The idea of a free church took shape among the people, a church whose individual congregations were controlled by no outside authority. A radically lay-led church gathered by mutual consent rather than by mutual belief, founded in covenant rather than creed, and governed by the congregation itself.
10 years later, this basis for gathering and governing was described in the Cambridge Platform, which remains a defining document for the people of faith, including Unitarian Universalists, who continue to practice congregational polity.
Please rise in body or in spirit, wherever you are, and imagine us all gathered in the sanctuary as we affirm our mutual responsibilities to one another by reading the words you see on your screen.
What our religious ancestors proclaimed in 1648 is still true today. The communion of churches is exercised
by way of mutual care in taking thought for one another's welfare, in case of need,
to minister relief and succor one to another. We, your family in faith,
affirm the shared ministry formalized here today. We offer to you care and succor. We commit to taking thought of your welfare as a congregation. We call upon you for the same, for we have promised one another that we will be a beloved community.
We have
found
found
that
that
there's
always more to learn about how love really works and could work in our lives and in the world.